Okay, this is the Chelmsford Board of Health meeting for Tuesday, the 8th of September, 2020. My name is Eric Miko. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We understand that we are being broadcast, but at present we're still waiting to get patched into Zoom, so we can't actually see or hear people yet. And hopefully we'll have that up and running by the public comment section.
See us.
They could be able to see us, yes. So, hi.
That's a possibility.
That said, the first order of business is to accept the minutes from our August 3rd meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes from the August 3rd meeting?
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. They're accepted. Next is the outgoing correspondence.
Let's see, market basket.
We got a couple of in-law apartments, it looks like, and another farmer's porch.
Yeah. But they're not using that term anymore? Is that what the way it's worded? It's not in-law apartment anymore, they
It
don't,
doesn't say that, but I think that's what it is,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I assume
Yeah.
it is.
Talks about construct a garage and limited accessory
Accessory apartment.
apartment.
Yeah, which accessory apartment kind of implies that, so. Let's see, to contact.
We have the permit,
They're building a lot.
market basket for,
What do we have for tobacco sales?
it's for the
Market basket?
the permit to sell tobacco,
Okay, so there's no
nothing. to
vape
do.
shops or anything like that going in.
No.
I think Choice Fitness got themselves in trouble. Not
Sounds like
very
they
nice.
settled down finally.
Huh. That's funny, I thought Choice Fitness had expanded their place in order to do their social distancing. I don't understand that, but okay.
Yeah.
So we have expansion of 3 residences, presumably for additional residents. Right now, I don't know that it's really our place to make any comments about sewer
No.
capacity, so
Right.
that in terms of what we approve these for.
Yeah. and
We're
then-
just approving what the Board of Appeals wants to do.
Right,
We
right,
never disagree with that,
right, exactly.
or not that I know. So motion to accept the outgoing correspondence?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved unanimously.
Well, we had a really, is this during the hot spell when they shut down the pool, the lakes? It had to be, huh?
Yes, that very
Yeah, when it was
early
really, yeah, really hot.
heat waves. We had 2 in a row and it kind of,
There's still no social distancing going at these lakes.
So I've been down a couple times over to Varney, and mind you, it was usually a weekday, not a weekend. And people were respectful, and when they were reminded by the lifeguards, they did comply. I haven't been there on a weekend, like especially a holiday weekend. Have you been down there at those times, or?
No, I try not to go. I don't want to get sick. We got a skunk and a bat.
yeah, skunk bite, yeah. I don't know what you're doing, but
Where was that?
that was the only thing. It says
Oh.
57 Manatag Road. Is that just doesn't ring a bell. Maybe,
Oh,
maybe they, with some of the new ones, but
Yeah, me neither.
Manatag, I think it would be like Manning.
Then we have Mr. Harvey's letter
Yes.
about Brian Reedy, which I think, my understanding is that's been taken care of by Brian.
Okay. So we got 2 letters from Harvey. The other one is about sewer connections. Well, I mean, going backwards, it was one of those things that, you know, They were in historical limbo, which means they were built before they approved the second phase of sewer. Therefore, there was the potential that there were going to be people that were going to be left on septic, and therefore, would you make someone tie in? But then when that second phase or project, came to be that we were going to do 100%, then it became an issue, and good, bad, or indifferent, this development and its ability to get them closer in connections to sewer so that it wouldn't be
Not
as
COVID.
as cost prohibitive. So, but yeah, I guess this one will be part of the puzzle that we're looking at in relationship to, but okay, DP stuff.
Asbestos being removed.
Right.
How much asbestos is left?
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like a huge amount, but
Well, it's. I'm not sure exactly what kind of buildings they are. They don't really describe.
Sorry,
what
folks, we're having some tech support problems with the audio. We're
Okay.
working on it.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
I think we need to just keep going.
Yeah, but I think that if it's some kind of non-residential, which I'm assuming it is, but when they talk about flooring and whatever, that, I mean, it's possible, but it could be that, but again, you go back enough years and asbestos was a component of an awful lot of stuff, including a lot of that old tile.
It was done as a matter of course, right?
Exactly. So they just, again, it's just trying to get the property all lined up so that when and if they do something, that it won't be a stumbling block for the future. And doing them all at one time, I guess, is, if you're going to do something,
You might as well get it
you
done.
might as well do it.
Not gonna get better. It's not
No,
like
no.
formaldehyde that's gonna age out.
Exactly.
It's not going to,
Exactly,
so.
exactly. And also,
All right,
too.
I'm gonna put the video on here so we can
Okay.
tape whatever, how much we can going from here.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right? Now, I'm not telling you I did that right. It's a new phone, and it's not my BlackBerry, it's an iPhone.
An iPhone? Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the incoming correspondence. I don't see anything in there that
No.
I think needs any real discussion.
All right.
Here a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous.
Okay.
Now for old business. So has either of you gotten an update from Sue or anybody else in the department regarding the Newport industry odor complaints?
I have not heard any update from them.
No.
I mean, Eric, correct me wrong, but I mean, 355 confirmed cases, doesn't sound a lot in a
You're on the,
old business. I'm on
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
on the COVID.
Yeah, the COVID
I
update.
mean, it sounds to me like we're doing pretty well, considering
Well, I
the
mean,
population.
again, we had that
where do
initial,
you actually have a COVID update? I don't have that in my
It's under old
packet.
business.
no, it's just that it's listed.
It's just
not-
listed,
Not,
and then-
okay,
and
okay.
then
not
there's
that the
numbers.
document. I mean, you can look at Darcy's report under others.
You don't
and-
have any audio on your, no, this is just recording, never
Yeah.
mind.
Well, I'll
So-
bet it's getting audio, though.
No, I was just wondering if there was anybody to give us an update. I haven't heard from Sue that we had a big spike. I think like we had like last week when we talked, last month when
Yeah.
we talked about it,
There's
that
a-
even with everything that Darcy like hunted down with regard to graduation parties, there was only 15 new cases in the town, which, and 10 of those were attributable to those parties.
Right.
So I don't get the sense that we're having a bump at the moment. I think everybody's sort of bracing a little bit that, you can choose which pedal you want to push. And if we're going to push the school one, hopefully the kids behave themselves and the school's able to have policies that keep them healthy.
My grandsons are already back in school, and they give them mask breaks like 3 times a day, and they
Which is-
seem to be taking it okay.
Yeah.
Which
I mean,
is,
they're
which is good, because, oof,
Yeah, they're 13, 12 years old, and
Yeah.
they're just
Where-
kind of
where in the school at?
They're up in New Hampshire.
Okay, because that's been an issue, I know, in one of the Lowell schools that I'm a school physician for, in that the state says, take mask breaks at a certain interval, but then it's poorly defined. And some other place in the, what they put out there for the school nurses, it says that they're supposed to maintain masks at all times, irrespective of distance and time and
The
such.
nurses or the kids?
No, it says the kids are supposed to have the mask. So in one place, it's just that it's written one way, one place,
Yeah.
and then it says they're supposed to have mask breaks in another place. So, it's just the way these things kind of get written normally.
I know.
But it's an ill-defined concept, and so what I've been saying is like, look, if you can keep the windows open and the kids are having quiet time, they just haven't like exercised, they're not talking, they're reading quietly, something where they're keeping their mouths shut for the most part, let them take it off for, whatever the
Yeah.
period of time is, and make sure that they're 6 feet apart when that happens, and make sure that time is less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think with kids, you have to do that, because they're not going to keep it on 100% of the time. So I think you've got
Well,
to,
you're gonna be
you've
fighting-
got to
you-
accommodate them. They,
yeah, you're
just
gonna
the-
be fighting with it.
yeah, their understanding is just so limited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
No.
what is this about? Why
You know,
am
why
I?
am I doing this,
Yeah.
So-
And particularly when it starts to get a little difficult after a while for them,
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah,
they're doing.
it gets difficult for me.
Well, I agree. I totally agree. But,
I'm thinking of getting one of those big masks, the big plastic.
oh, the shields?
Well, because my clients, I think, could understand me better. My
Oh,
older
yeah.
clients are having a hard time.
Oh, yeah. The verbal component of your mind trying to say, oh, I'm at the right volume for you,
Right.
and I'm not.
Right, yeah, that's, I've been thinking about it.
Kind of thing. So yeah, it potentially can be difficult. And of course, I think that's one of the biggest problems with the school issues, is that hearing your teacher but not being able to see the mouth moving, but also the expressions and other kinds of things.
Right.
It's just
Makes
not.
it hard to understand.
It's just not the same.
Yeah.
It's just not the same, and it's difficult. Now again, whether some of the teachers get in little cubicles and talk in little cubicles or something like that, I don't know.
It's a new
When they
world.
mask off because they're in a little cubicle kind of thing.
I'm curious about the age differences, because at certain ages that you tell them to wear a mask and they just wear the mask without question because you told them to wear the mask. And
Absolutely.
there's other ones that are going to sort of like push back a little bit,
Yep.
and who they have policing that and what kind of, I think the teachers they're pretty good about finding ways to engage the kids.
Well, I think it starts at home,
Yeah.
I'm all set with the old business.
Okay.
Eric, if you want a motion.
Okay. What else is in
I'll simply comment that I thought that the Department of Health had put together a fairly good list of concerns that were brought to people. The fact that it was in the morning when they were doing the pickups and such, and that the letter that Sue received back says that they drove by at random times and it didn't seem to be a problem. And hopefully that they do put a little bit more investigation into it as time goes on.
So on the sewer capacity in the 2 articles, we're going to do that later as something? Is that what you want to do it? How do you want to do it? Or?
I would,
Yeah, I'd like to stay on the old business for Newport Industries.
Okay.
Has that died down at all? Are we still having problems?
I haven't specifically heard,
I
so
mean, I can see some emails in here.
yeah.
I thought that I'd seen a couple emails or something beyond just what was compiled at our last meeting. And it seemed that, people are being good about giving complaints, and Sue had reached out and asked them to please, give me updates, give me times, give me this and that.
Right.
But then, whatever authority that we have, that, it's basically to go ahead and notify the state, and the state has just sort of said, well, it's been a busy summer, we've had everybody complaining about stuff, maybe they're pouring their own driveways, I don't know, but I didn't smell it when I passed through town. And I don't mean to be more dismissive than the letter was, but I don't
No,
think
no,
that the letter
I-
seemed like that they're really, digging into it to find out what our problems were here. So I'm hoping that we still continue to collect information and pass it on.
Definitely.
Well, that study should be starting soon. I would think that the town meeting voted the last meeting. The one- Remember we were there?
Yes.
Yeah, it was supposed to be mid-September, wasn't it?
Yeah,
The first one?
The meeting was August?
Yes.
Yeah, but they voted the money, so I would hope that
They
they're
had
gonna,
voted the $50,000
I would hope that study's
for a
gonna
study.
get done. And that
But-
might help us.
But I guess the question is, when is the study from quote-unquote Westford being done? I thought they sort of wanted to,
I thought they did it from Westford.
well, they've done one. They're presumably, now that it's operating, or,
Doing another one.
no, again, I can't say that as fact, but they're supposed to be doing another study now that it's open and they can actually get actual, not theoretical concepts of, you know, what the numbers say that, you know, that come from the industry and DEP and whatever, but what's really going on there. And what's the predominant, what is the predominant activity? And in all seriousness too, you're finally going to see,
Okay, let's stop,
Yeah.
because Sue has just texted me and said that they're having technical difficulties. They can see us, they can't hear anything.
okay, all right,
Sorry, we're having
yeah, we'll stop.
COVID issues tonight. At least we got that.
COVID.
COVID,
Well,
COVID repercussions, not the disease, the
Oh.
technological repercussions.
Technological.
The problem
okay.
here is that, we
Yeah.
don't,
You guys hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you. Can
Yes,
you hear
good.
us?
Yes.
All right, now I can hear you. Yep, I think we're good.
Okay.
well, we're halfway in, Sue, but
I know.
nobody,
I know, and the only way I know where you are is because I've been watching underneath, seeing what part you're
What
at.
color paper we just flipped on
Yeah,
over?
what page
So we
is
had
what?
unanimous votes on everything today. We were talking a little bit about the Newport Industries and wondering if you're having ongoing complaints from them. The other thing that came up was when the town is going to start their own investigation, their own study on the air quality. And I was in the process of thinking that maybe if we have information that this seems to be, a morning event, that people actually smell and complain about it, if there's any way to sort of direct the town's investigation so that it's not, we were worried that if Westford does their own, but they do it at the random times, whether we could direct it so that we could find out usable information for us.
So Westford, my understanding, I believe, did their follow-up study last week.
Mhm.
Chelmsford has actually had an approval of a contract for the same company that Westford used to do an air quality study in the town of Chelmsford. I do not know when that study is going to take place. However, all of the information that I have received from residents in the area has been given to the company that's going to be doing this study.
Okay.
So we have files upon files upon files of complaints that we have received from multiple people in the area of Newport Industries regarding odor. So we have a complaint file on each individual that has sent us those complaints. They come in the morning, sometimes they come in the afternoon, and it varies. That entire file has been sent to the company. Every single time I get a complaint, I also now forward that complaint to Ed from DEP, because he's the one who seems to be in charge of following up on Newport Industries. So I feel that every complaint that we're getting, we should forward to him. I did include in the packet an email that I did send to him
Yes.
for everybody to see,
Yep.
asking him, for his support on this, because our hands are so tied, because this plant is not in Chelmsford. However, it's really affecting our residents, and we need to do something for our residents.
If there's any
So-
patterns emerging, whatever they can do to look specifically into those patterns, because again, if it was a morning problem and everything was measured at 1 PM when somebody happened to drive out midday,
Correct.
it would be nice to sort of be able to identify.
And that's why we sent them the copies of all the complaints, so that they would also know, when as far as weather and that type of thing, it was also coinciding with. And sometimes there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason.
Sue, one question that I had for you is,
Yep.
is there, in the connection directly to the company, are they telling us, or can they tell us, I don't know, that when they get contracts? What I'm saying is if, there's operational things for standardized stuff that's done every day, to do with asphalt. But then there's interstate highway contracts that they're doing at night. Okay, so now the timetables totally change because they're supplying these places after hours.
Yep.
So therefore, the complaint cycle that we have right now, if there's no highway contracts, then you look at one thing, but when there's highway contracts and different time frames and whatever, in different atmospheric conditions, that may exist at night when everything's, settles down a little bit and whatever, because that way there you get both pieces of the puzzle. Where is the odor showing up? Where is the drift versus the wind direction? Where is it? And again, the company hopefully is doing, where does it go? But then, as I said, with change of hours and days and whatever through contracts and whatever, that could totally change the scenario, kind of thing. So I was just
So
wondering
we
whether
don't have
Newport
that-
is
No,
obligated.
I don't have that information. I don't know if, Westford has that information
Yeah.
because it's in there or whether they can request it.
Yeah.
I do know that, Ray Dick and Jeff Stevens,
Yeah.
I think for the most part, most of the people, that are lodging the complaints in Chelmsford, at least the ones that I have spoken to directly, I have also given them Jeff and Ray Dick's emails, and I've asked them to email them every single time they email me or
Okay.
Michelle, or anybody in our office. It does seem to be predominantly, Scotty Hollow. It's really having an impact on a lot of residents in Scotty Hollow. I was a little bit disappointed, I must admit, from Ed's reply, basically telling me that,
Yeah.
they're really busy and they're short-staffed with COVID going on and all of that, because, I just feel like, all of us in the whole public health arena have been incredibly busy. But this is something that we still need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
I did want to, while we are talking about this, a resident had put a question in the chat as to whether or not the air quality test results would be available to the public. That is going to be considered a public document. So once that study is completed, I know that they're going to report the results of that study, I believe, to the select board. And then, of course, anything that's public record can always be requested through our public record request procedure.
Okay.
Well, what is going on with this new article about animals?
So I believe that was brought up in the past. We have a fair number of complaints that come to our office from neighbors concerned that their other neighbors are feeding the wild turkeys, they're leaving food out, and it's a nuisance attraction. So you've got lots of turkeys or other wild animals coming to feed on whatever people are either throwing out in their yard or putting in a feeder. And this is an article that's going to be proposed to town meeting representatives to pass or not pass, to say that they would be forbidden to feed the wild animals.
So this means you can't have a bird feeder?
No, you can still have a bird feeder. What people do is they throw leftover food oftentimes out on their lawn, and some people purposely throw food out on their lawn purposely to feed turkeys and other, wild animals. So that's what that article is all about.
Okay.
So I think this specifies it's ground feeding,
Yes,
not elevated
not
feeder.
bird, not bird.
I guess the question is, we indirectly through our own regulations, state regulations and whatever, are always involved in any kind of nuisance, period. And by the way, who brought this article up? Was it?
I believe it was Ken LaFave. I'm not 100% sure.
So it wasn't brought up as a problem by any of the enforcing entities. What I'm saying is the animal control officer, the state wildlife people, whatever the right particular term is for the employees that do that their job is to monitor and whatever. Where do they stand on this thing? I mean, it's because bottom line, if you then erase everybody out, guess whose problem it is? It ends up 100% on us.
I believe that the reason it was being brought forth is because even though we were getting complaints and we were following up on them in the health department with animal control, I believe that members of the select board were also getting direct complaints from people.
Okay.
So I have a
And I
problem
think
with
that this was a bylaw that was passed in some other communities. It was, pulled from other communities, and now they want to adopt it here in Chelmsford.
But this scattering directly or indirectly, I don't have bird feeders because they also bring in chipmunks. But when you have bird feeder,
It's
you
on the-
scatter food.
Correct.
So
On the
I
ground.
think this language is inaccurate. I mean, it says directly or indirectly. If you have a bird feeder, you are scattering food. It doesn't go any other way. So I don't think that language is correct. And the rest of it I can see, but I mean, you know what I've had people say they get bears because they're bird feeders.
Right.
But I guess I don't want to see.
Because you do end up having some of the bird feed on the ground.
Right, so scattering directly or indirectly, I guess it's the indirect that I don't like.
Yeah.
'Cause it happens.
Yeah.
All right.
No, again, it's just like anything else. It's where is it going to fall?
It's gonna fall right here.
Yeah, I mean,
The
so
policing.
again, it's another article that they want to pass. They list all the other parties that potentially could do it, but who's going to end up being the party, that's going to predominantly do it?
Well, it says the animal control officers, police officers, agents for the Board of Health,
Yeah.
environmental police.
I wonder what authority our thing to them means, if anything at all. I mean, they're basically saying that they're supposed to enforce this. I don't know if you can tell them what they can enforce or not enforce. I mean, clearly, I think the state's people don't want you doing some of the things that are worded in there about putting out salt licks and baiting things to bring in deer or other hunted animals and whatever onto properties so that they can get an easier shot, I guess you want to call it. So I mean, I understand some of that other stuff, but as I said, it's just it's like, oh, everybody else is too busy, so therefore it's yours, kind of thing. And I just see that they just continue to.
I don't even know why bathhouses are in here. Bathhouses have nothing to do with feeding. I don't know. That caught me off guard, but.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I think technically, if the board wanted to make recommendations to possibly change it, I believe it's next Monday, the 14th, that the select board will be being presented with the articles. So I don't know if the board would want to write a letter concerning, some of the verbiage, or make suggestions on changes, or even the enforcement piece of it. I mean, we all know that, the health department has always been the enforcing agent when it comes to nuisance, as difficult as it can be. And again, you see in this article that, the various departments, and I agree with Rich, that, ultimately, animal control may go out there, but it just seems so many things fall on the health department.
My only complaint is the scattering indirectly. And there's some other language in here that says this section shall not be interpreted as so as to prohibit bird feeders, squirrel feeders, or bat houses. It's just not well written, but that's my only complaint, that's my only concern, is the scattering indirectly.
I think akin to Richard's concerns, my concern is it seems like increasingly that the Board of Health, Department of Health is being put in between neighbor disputes, that we're asked to police things that aren't necessarily health related, so that how this is affected is a little concerning.
I think it's a nuisance, I think it's not so much health as the nuisance part of our responsibility.
Well, the only thing that we've had in the past in regards to the issue of nuisance and health is that if, and which by the way they are, if a number of these animals that are being attracted to an area because of people feeding them, there's a number of them that carry rabies to a large extent. And historically, I remember one where there was a neighbor feeding raccoons, and the neighbors were getting perturbed that there was literally dozens of raccoons constantly in the yard fighting with each other, and it was at one of the peaks of rabies in that particular population. And but they did wake up. They did wake up because they went away for a few days and didn't feed them, and the raccoons tore the screen door off the house because they weren't getting fed. So it finally rang a bell
Yeah.
to them that, oh, maybe,
Yeah.
and it took months to deal with it because of some of the trapping and the other issues and whatever.
Yeah, it would
To
take months.
stop
yeah.
the feeding, actually, we ended up, luckily they backed up to a piece of open property that was town-owned and whatever, and instead of feeding them, 25 feet from their back door, the next day I said, you feed them at 100 feet from your back door, and then go on to town, town-owned property, then go to 200 feet, then go to 300 feet, and each time reduce the amount of food. Okay, so by the time you get to 500 feet, there's just piddly nothing, and there's not enough for them all, so they all go, there's nothing, not here, and they all dispersed without having to try to do trapping and other kinds of things, but at least move the problem away. But again, it was super, I hate to say it, but super time consuming, okay, to do these kinds of things. So, it's nice that they just like to list everybody, and will always be involved, but we end up again as, with this thing. I mean, a turkey doesn't carry rabies, at least not that I'm aware of. I don't know if you,
No.
kinds of things. So, feeding wild turkeys or certain birds or other kinds of things and whatever that are a nuisance
Yeah,
and
but
whatever.
turkeys are aggressive.
Oh, they are. No.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is at least they're not carrying something that it can be dramatically serious.
No, they'll just rip your leg open.
Oh, yeah.
right?
No, I'm not doing that. But as I said, it just...
Right. Well,
just
that's
add
my,
and add
that's
and add
my
and add.
So
only,
some
and I
concerns
can
about the
be-
wording, some concerns about the enforcement
Right.
Right.
for that one. With regard to sewer capacity,
Yeah. 18.
I think we're all of the opinion that it's taken a long time to get where we're at now,
Right.
and that the idea that we're going to introduce new sewers in Chelmsford, new septic tanks, I mean,
Basically, new discharge to the ground is basically the concept. To go backwards after we've spent all the years going there. And also, too, we went there for the simple fact that there was dramatic amount of data over the years of us directly and indirectly polluting our own water
Yeah.
supply and every other recreational water that was around. And the only way, since we were already at 30,000, going back 30 years, okay, that there's no reversing that. And this board, and previous boards, took an aggressive action. I mean, one of the things that we did do, we had 16 private sewage treatment plants in town.
Right.
And somebody says, well, see, you thought private treatment, I said it was an interim solution to get to the final solution. Bottom line, as long as there's access to put things to the ground, you can pollute it, excuse me. And particularly, I'm not talking about just the normal components of septic waste. I'm talking about the fact that any of these places, whether they're residential or commercial, okay, you have the potential for chemicals and other components to end up in the groundwater.
Yep.
And pretty simply, the state, going back quite a few years, did a study, but they knew we were in the middle of our sewer project, did a study, and pretty simply, it was one of the reasons why they approved some of the commercial zones for sewer in town, because they were finding chemicals reaching municipal wells, coming through septic systems on commercial properties. I mean, it's not, I mean, and to go back to it just for the sake of keeping things rolling, or whatever the appropriate term is, no, we basically got to this point, and also too, the town has to accept the fact that we are going to end, okay, in our growth spurt, and then everything is redevelopment, and redevelopment means this is your capacity for this piece of land, and that's it. You can revitalize it into anything you want if you go through the appropriate, planning and zoning and Board of Appeals things, and they approve something different, but that's your limit. And playing a shuffle game, at this point in time, when we're 98 point whatever we are, probably 99% sewered, okay, is just crazy. I mean, it's just crazy to go backwards. And
Well, I agree with you. I think Sue at the meeting said it right. Here, we're backpedaling here.
Right.
All right? Now, I don't know what happened here. I'm going to lay it on the feet of the planning board, because nobody thought about this when they were permitting all these condos and all these apartments.
well, what's very interesting, okay, is that septic systems and the design numbers that everything follows from is based on a bedroom or square footage or whatever the formulas are. But what they don't remember is the fact that those numbers were designed for two things. One was to allow it to properly, presumably, go into the ground and not pollute something. But the second issue is that they wanted the systems that are there to last. Therefore, the numbers were somewhat, if you want to call it, inflated, because they don't want something that'll only last 5 years and then boom, it's gone. Now you got to put another one in. So when they were looking at the 20 to 30 year range average kind of thing that everybody hoped, at least financially, that you were going to be facing, that they created those numbers for that purpose. So when they were surprised that the numbers, blank number years ago in gallons used and what they are now seem to be the same, is the fact that, number one, I do think that the people in town are being reasonably conscious about their use of water and not overuse of water. But also, too, that they just not, you're going to be coming to the end of that thing, and they've allowed, and again, I understand there's problems with the state with a gun to your head and whatever, on 40Bs and other kinds of things like that. But the bottom line is to redevelop things to a 5 times, 10 times, 20 times what that piece of property should be dealing with, and just keep on going down that path. I mean, we ran into the thing in 2002. We're just sitting there saying, uh-oh, put a moratorium on, because, it's too bad that, quote unquote, we couldn't work out something with Lowell. But what I'm now hearing is that an awful lot of towns with these regional, treatment scenarios and whatever are facing the same thing. So if the state wants something, for certain types of development and whatever, this idea that it's your problem, we're going to use up all your cushion. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. We had a reasonable amount of cushion based on the fact that if we develop the town the way the zoning said it should be developed, in that density, that we should be reasonably well for a reasonable period of time. They didn't. Let's take a piece of property and let's do 10 times what it should be done. And again, everybody's jumping on that bandwagon. Oh, good.
Yeah.
So,
In the last 3 years, there really hasn't been a significant change.
oh, absolutely.
There was a little bit of a change, 2016, there's this slight increase. But it looks like, the main thing is that, they've added 866 bedrooms that are approved for wastewater flow already, and they got another 2,000 that are going to,
Yeah.
that they're predicting are going to be applying in short order. And that's, I think, where push comes to shove with this system, that we had a little bit of a margin in there, and we just added a lot to it. So,
Also, too, you're right, and it's not a surprise that we're there, and yes, the concept of a moratorium to sit down to see what avenues we have and whatever, but to jump on the avenue that septic is going to be your answer for everything, and go backwards on that kind of thing,
Well, a moratorium is one thing,
absolutely. The
Okay.
moratorium is one thing.
but that's not really what I heard when I listened to that selectmen's meeting.
Right.
What I heard is that we're going to go back to
Septic
septic
system.
systems.
Sure.
Okay? And I know what we're going to hear, because I feel it myself. I had a $14,000 septic system that you made me crush.
Correct.
And
Oh,
for the luxury
absolutely.
of crushing that working
Right.
system, you assessed me a betterment.
Right.
All right?
I know.
I mean, it's not fair. What I also heard that I didn't like was graduated sewer rates. And I can tell you right now that to me as a business owner, that says to me, you're going to hit the businesses. You're going to give the businesses a different rate. You can just see it coming, and you know that's going to upset the businesses in town.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think,
Well,
we're
I
going
mean, again, personally, this idea that these remaining people, now again, some of them have two groups. Basically, some of them that have just been ignoring it and don't want to do it and stall to do whatever it wants. Then there's the other people that legitimately had the right not to do something right now
Exactly.
until the system failed, and they want us to just cut them off.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, whatever cushion
Yes.
there is left, that should be for them. Now, again, yes, there was comments that we should be contacting all these parties directly and sitting there saying, hey, we don't know where things are going, but you better get on the clock, and as far as we're concerned, you have priority over somebody new that wants to come in and do A, B, and C. And because those individuals have been paying through their taxes and for this project for all these years, okay, and didn't get the benefit of it, whether it's the real estate benefit or whether it's they got some of the benefit of protecting the water supply and whatever. But now it's sort of like, too bad. We think we're going to do this and we think we're going to do that.
But Richard, I think
No.
it goes the other way. I don't think it's too bad. I think it's a score for them.
Oh.
I think those people that have been on these private ways
Yeah.
and who haven't had a
Yeah.
failed system or
Yeah.
haven't had somebody on the private way sell, they just got a pass. They're getting a pass.
Yeah, but they only get a pass if potentially, and again, I'm just saying this as an issue. The Board of Health has the right to sit there and say, you prove to me your system is in compliance with code. And guess what?
Okay. You know what?
They're not.
After we chase down those raccoons.
I know. Well,
y-
yes,
I mean,
they don't have the other time.
you know.
But I mean, clearly, these individuals can be required to do a Title V inspection by us. And if it fails, and by the way, everybody that thinks they're missing the thing is that depending on which way this thing goes, and they don't get on board and whatever, we're going to be making them put a new septic system in. And if they think it was like the good old days,
Yeah, they may not be able to. Under the new Title V, they might not be able to.
good luck to them.
So we're going to have to make an opinion for town meeting.
Yes.
We're going to have to take a position
Yes.
on this, although I don't think we've seen what they're proposing, have we, Sue? I mean, there was a lot of chat at that selectmen's meeting, but it kind of went all over the place.
Right, and what's happening at this point is there've been a couple of meetings and it's kind of being discussed with some of the options that are being discussed are Weston and Sampson, asking them for a proposal to do a study on what the options are for the town. Basically, this is happening, updating the bylaw, which of course we've gone by that bylaw in making certain people connect in the past, where it mentions the sewer commission.
Yeah, at
because
quite
the
an
sewer
expense.
commission no longer
Yes.
exists.
Yes.
Yeah, within the last 3 months, we put people to a very
Correct.
large expense trying to enforce that bylaw, and now we're gonna chuck
Just-
it?
No, no.
And then they're also talking about updating the sewer regulation itself, because, again, the wording in there that refers to the sewer commission and specific regulations and requirements. And then, of course, a moratorium on sewer connection. That's kind of the different things that are on the table being discussed. I do believe that at the select board's meeting next Monday, they are going to be discussing some of these options again. So part of my suggestion, like you just said, Anne Marie, is that, you want to render an opinion that it should probably be given to the select board prior to the meeting for next Monday.
Well, I think we need to decide,
So our opinion is going to be essentially that we don't think we should be doing new septic systems. We think
No.
that- We think whatever the solution is, it should be looking to handle this through a townwide sewer.
I think it's a moratorium.
Moratorium's fine.
Moratorium's fine.
Not,
Right.
not an issue.
No new building, no new connections, except, I would imagine, the case of an emergency failure for a septic.
Right, right.
But reverting back to septic systems, I think, is not acceptable.
So I think they have 70,000, whatever, units of capacity left.
Right, right.
40,000 has already been like given away with projects
Right,
that have
right,
permits
right.
but haven't tied in just yet.
Right, right.
And that 30,000 left over, the minimal is that's if people were to go ahead and put an in-law apartment over the garage and handle those things in the short term until we figure out what we're going to do long-term
Yeah.
for the
Yeah, I think
others.
that's correct.
And if there's a moratorium, then anybody who wants to open anything up has the option of building their own on-site treatment plants.
Yeah, those worked, when they had them, they worked pretty well.
Yeah, but what's very interesting about them, okay, is that number one, it doesn't protect you from from putting other products down the thing.
No, I know you have the same
And
concerns.
we okayed them for the basic reason to buy time, okay, to give us the best protection that we could until we finally got to the final solution, which we bothered to pay for, that 100% would have it. And they want to make this change that all of a sudden it's like, well, oh, as long as you put a treatment plant in, you're fine. A good percentage of this town, okay, is groundwater based, water supply, recharge areas and whatever, a good chunk of this town. And bottom line is, even in those areas, okay, when we didn't have an option, that was the best possible option that was on the thing. To just waive the option that we have, which is, okay, we have sewer, and this is what everybody was supposed to have done, okay, and you can have it, but to increase and say, oh, just come in with any kind of project you want, and we're just gonna continue to hand it to you, kind of thing. No, sorry.
But if we don't have capacity now, we have to have a solution, to sort of hold us over until,
Well, I think they've got to get more capacity somewhere.
Well,
which is probably going to be about a 4-year project and
could be.
minimum $1 million,
Yep.
putting into our own treatment plant, Southwell or
Well,
otherwise.
this was, again, I believe this was avoidable. Somebody should have been paying attention here.
Well, the obvious issue is they showed it, I mean, after the project started, it wasn't even, maybe a little bit more than half done, and they already saw that the writing was on the wall, kind of thing, that this was going to come to be, put the moratorium in. again, as I said, everybody thought they'd just be able to get out and just buy capacity from Lowell, and all their solutions were gone, and oh, we'll get to it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it. And as long as we had our, which I don't know what the dates are, when our 30-year, 40-year, whatever contract that we had with Lowell at setting the prices and whatever, when that all expires, where are things then, kind of thing. So it's going to be an interesting scenario. But as I said, but the perception that every piece of property doesn't have a limitation, okay, that doesn't have a limitation, that just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And their ability to, as they popped out, put a treatment plant down Southwell. First of all, they kicked that away years and years ago, okay? Before, we'll just have our own and we'll sewer and whatever. So why didn't we just do it for our whole town, kind of thing. Bottom line is, that is right across the river directly to the intake of Lowell's water supply. So yeah, let's put it right out there in the river to be sucked in from the other side of the river to go into the Lowell water supply. And Peterson actually kind of hinted to it that, well, they won't give us a direct discharge, which means you can't put the pipe directly into the river anymore. So now we're going to build a big pile of sand along a sandy shoreline, and somehow that makes it so much better. Come on. Again, as I said, we went through this whole thing with this astronomical cost and took the extra step to do 100%, but it's never enough. It's never enough. Well, the problem is, in some cases, it's going to have to be enough. Maybe redevelopment has to be done in a more conscious way to sit there and say, this is the load that this town can take and can afford and whatever, and that's the direction you should go into. This perception that the town can just continue to do whatever it wants and grow and do this and develop this and whatever, it's la-la land. It's la-la land. Now again, as I said earlier, if the state of Massachusetts, who's pushing a lot of different things that have contributed, I'm not blaming the state for everything, but contributed to the problems, then fine, work with the federal government and do this huge upgrade on all these treatment plants, all over the state, and get them all upgraded, okay, to take more capacity if they think that is critical. But no, politically, they don't want to get into that can of worms, so we'll just keep dumping it on you. We'll just dump it on you and dump it on you, little town, and you, little town over here. Just dump it on you, kind of thing. Until you're swimming in what you don't want to be swimming in. And then it's like, well, where do we go from here? Well, we've had a wake-up call, quite a few years ago, and we got a second wake-up call, and I guess it's time to wake up, so.
Well,
But they want us just to, hey, it's not even a bump on the road. We'll just go to the Board of Health and get a permit.
Well, they're going to want us to render an opinion.
Okay.
That's what Sue is asking. Is
Yeah.
that correct, Sue?
I think based on your discussion, I think it warrants
I
the
mean,
board,
I don't know
you as
that the
board members
selectmen
rendering an opinion for sure.
will want our opinion, but that town meeting's going to want our opinion
Yes.
because that's been proven over the last 2 meetings.
Right.
So we all agree in a moratorium.
Yes. Yeah. That part's fine. And
Don't agree that we should go back to septic systems.
right. And there's no reason to go back to septic systems other than the fact that we want to put.
Keep developing.
How did I keep using it? An old Bobby Greenwood standard as an old septic man. He says you can't put 10 pounds of excrement in a 5-pound bag. Well, that's where we are. okay? And no matter how you want to beat around the bush and whatever, the bottom line is the town is the 10-pound bag, okay? Or the 5-pound bag. And we can't put 10 pounds of it in. Simple as that.
So when we talk about a moratorium, what we're really talking about is a moratorium on building in town.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I just want,
On new
I'm in
systems.
agreement, I
Yeah.
just
Do you
want to be
want-
sure.
Are we going to make any comment about if a new construction wants to put their own on-site
Well-
sewage treatment?
Well, again,
If it's large enough, I mean, I guess.
but no.
But he had concerns about that this was an
But
But he
existing
has-
standard.
it's
But
not
the issue
really
is,
addressing
the
the
issue
issue,
is, where these treatment plants, if you look at a map of the town where the zone 2s are and everything else and whatever, the areas, they're not putting one out on the Westford line, making some big development on the Westford line. It's going to be in the center, what I call the center core of the town, which is basically Boston Road, it's basically Route 4, and everything towards the highways, okay? It's all water supply. It's all water supply. And bottom line is, as I said, we went to treatment plant to put the plug in the dam until we got the sewer. We get the sewer to solve that problem, and now they want to go back and say, well, we want more down there.
So, Richard,
That's where they're going to be.
Richard, a lot of these treatment plants are from the 1980s and the 1990s,
Right,
right? I mean,
right.
you've got it at Chelmsford Village had one.
Correct.
Okay, I don't know if it's still there.
No,
Okay?
no.
It's not there anymore?
No, they finally.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm just, you know, I
Every
mean-
single treatment plant, we had 16 of them in town. Every single one of them has dismantled it and went to sewer. And they did it because it's costly to build them, but it's costly, and by the way, build your project, put your plant in, get your approval, and then it's like, well, when are you going to give me sewer? When are you going to give me sewer? When are you going to get me sewer? Because I don't want to keep paying this cost to run this treatment plant forever. And as I said, it's not the end all. It's an end all when the nearest sewer line is 50 miles from your town. Well, then of course that's the top of the things that you can go to. We're where we belong, and they want to cut it off and go backwards and say, oh, now we're going to start back here again. I came to town in 1980 and watched. I was 100% septic. There wasn't a bit of sewer in town or whatever. And bottom line, to go through all what the town did and all the boards did going backwards, to go back and sit there and say, oh, we're just going to throw that all out and go back and somehow find a loophole to get around to say, oh, the treatment plant is the solution to everything. No, the treatment plant is the solution when sewer isn't available. Well, sewer is available. The issue is you want to exceed the capacity of the piece of property that you have. We already have a solution for that piece of property in a zone 2 or a water supplies areas. We already have the solution for that piece of property to be utilized. And they just want to sit there and say, oh, but we need to be able to have all options for redevelopment to everything. As I said, there's no check. There doesn't seem to be any check in the reality that you're a community, you grow up. I mean, they've taken the master plan that we beat our heads against, okay, during the 70s and the early 80s, and they just threw that in the trash and basically said, well, we don't care what you want your build-out to be. I mean,
So with an on-site
yes.
sewage treatment, how is that compared to what Lowell has at Duck Island? And how is it compared to a septic tank? Because the way this isn't
Well,
something I
again,
do.
what I'm saying, a
professionally.
septic, the next step is, quote unquote, the third step is sewer. Now, you know, the obvious issue is, you're right in the simple fact is that if there's an issue, okay, of what sewer is, then they need to resolve that issue of improving sewer systems and the discharges that they have to be of a higher level, okay, to be of a higher level. The issue that you have usually with sewage treatment plants, particularly the large municipal or regional ones that you have, is that they have, regretfully, a large receiving body, which is, in this case, I got a river of blank number of cubic feet of water per second going by here that will dilute out A, B, and C and take my numbers from here to here, okay? Putting it into the ground, you don't have that dilution factor that makes these regional, whether it's going to the ocean or whether it's going to, and again, I'm not saying that the general sewer treatment things can't be all upgraded. Of course they can. Of course they can. Okay, and remove a myriad of different things and whatever. You know, of course, you know, the obvious problem that you have is that on the other end, no one's doing their job. And as I said, it's always dump it on the community, dump it on the community, dump it on the community. And it's like, oh, we'll just rubber stamp it and you'll be gone, and oh well, that's just, you know, that's just the way it is.
So in terms of our position for tonight, and we're going to present somehow to the town on Monday, it would be that we're in favor of a moratorium,
Yeah.
and any solution, we want it to be through a town sewer. Ultimately, we don't want to be putting new septic systems in.
No.
We don't want private on-site septic sewer systems for water treatment.
Well,
sewage treatment?
just so you know, back in the 80s, and it's technically still in the books, I don't know if it ever got removed, I don't think it did. When we were facing all the problems down in the Golden Triangle, whatever the term they wanted to use, of all that development and whatever, and all that process and the potential of chemicals getting into the oil fields and whatever kind of thing and whatever, we passed part of our local septic regs basically says that all discharges, unless they're waived by the Board of Health, which would be single-family homes, has to be treated to higher levels, period. Okay? But again, the concept was, over all those years, that was the stopgap solution. That wasn't ever going to be the permanent solution. I mean, why the heck do we spend 140, whatever the heck, $1 million to give the sewer? I mean, you always can just put more out than any system that you build can do, and then sit there and say, what happened?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, you allowed densities to be created.
So for Monday,
Yeah.
we're looking to say that we're in favor of a moratorium.
Right.
And that any
discharges to the ground, any discharges to the ground is problematic. Now,
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Yes,
I
it's
thought you were saying,
problematic.
because we want things handled by
Right.
a regional
Right.
town or otherwise,
Right.
not a private, we want it held to a higher standard.
yes,
And that's it. We don't want septics, and we'd rather not have private.
I mean, a good example is that if you took this piece of paper and that was the town, it was a rectangle, and we divided it in half, okay, and sat there and said, this half plus little fingers going out, the rivers and things that going out, with certain buffers around them. If you took that and sat there and said, this is our groundwater discharge, you know, areas and whatever that's related to water supply, water protection, recreational water, whatever. That area, 100% under any circumstances, for a variance from the Board of Health, it's sewer or nothing. Okay. If you went out to the Westford line and someone wanted to build, okay, a complex, okay, and they sat there and said, you don't have any capacity, could we put a treatment plant in? At least that then says to us,
But for Monday, do we have a map that we can say, like, not?
well, yeah, we
Circle it?
yeah, we do. We do. We have a map that's, but again, it's not like, it's a generalized map. You can get maps that are very well defined exactly where everything is, but as a general statement, it's everything from here, you know, from Boston Road and whatever, slightly on this side, all the way across, and north, center, south, and whatever. And if someone had a proposal for out in this area to do something and came in and sat there and said, well, first of all, the water that we put into the ground out here will never reach any of your water supply areas because the grounds don't go there. Doesn't go from point A to point B. And we're willing to put in a treatment plant that does A, B, and C and get it into the ground out here, okay? Versus putting it into a sandy area where the stuff just goes right straight through and becomes part of the recharge for the well fields and stuff. So the idea is that there is some potential, there is some potential for some sections of town away from water supply and groundwater protection things that potentially could,
Right. I just looking for.
potentially, but not,
for
but
Monday-
very little.
For Monday,
Very-
how do we distill it down to like a letter or a paragraph to convey it to the town selectmen?
Well, I believe we have to start by saying we support a moratorium
Yes,
until additional sewer capacity is identified. Okay? We do not support, I think it's revising the bylaws or the sewer regulations to permit the septic systems. All right? I think unless, I think a large project can have its own septic sewer treatment plant. It worked in the, I mean, I don't remember any problems in the 80s and the 90s.
but the answer is I do.
Well, I know you do, but I think, you know what, it's, I mean, I think,
But they were only okayed when I got into the fights with them, okay? In all seriousness, when I got into the fights with them all. It was only okay for the simple fact it was the best thing that was available until
right,
the solution was coming and we were willing to pay for it. We just couldn't get it there quick enough. So this is your interim solution.
So what are we gonna say?
We're basically not sitting there saying, you know, oh, I mean, and that's the problem. Can we sit there and turn around and sit there and say, oh, understand something, that if you put something in the ground, this is forever.
I don't know why we can't as part of the
Well, no,
permit.
and again, I'm not saying,
I
but
mean, I think if you do that, then they don't come in, this is
Yes,
gonna occur
yes.
again. If they put a
Yes.
private treatment plant, they don't come back, they don't come into the sewer.
Right, period.
All right, it's been
Right.
20 years,
Which
it's been 30 years.
all
Richard.
16, as soon as it was available to them.
Right, and what I'm saying is no, because that's
Okay,
only gonna
okay.
perpetuate
Yes.
the
So-
problem we have now.
So what I'm saying is, and again, this is personally, I mean, I'm not saying what the board says, is that there's that certain section of town which the map, this particular map that I had pulled out, and by the way, as I said, it's not, see this one here? Okay? See all the color? Okay? All those color areas basically are places that should not be able to do anything other than to connect the sewer. Other than to connect the sewer. And you can see where they are, and you can see what percentage of the town that falls in. I think outside those areas, there is some flexibility that the board may take, but not just rubber stamp that, oh, well, as long as you just come in and do this and come and do that, you can just do anything you want.
Okay, so if we were to say that we support a moratorium
Right.
until a source of additional capacity is identified.
Right.
We discourage water treatment plants
In
in these areas that you
In-
want.
in-
these areas that we're talking
EP
about.
Zone 2 wellhead protection.
What is it?
It's the EP Zone 2 wellhead protection.
Okay. Well, then, I don't think what we're going to say there is we discourage. I think we have to say we do not support.
Right.
Okay, so we
right.
don't support. And then we do not support private residence septic system, reverting back to the
No.
systems.
And again, like you said earlier, can you imagine if everybody turns around, sits there and says, well, I had a perfectly good system and you made me take it out, I'm gonna sue you now, town, because now you're telling people they can do this now, kind of thing.
It's a concern I
Well,
have.
you're right. I mean, you've taken 40 years of what we were going to do and where we wanted to end up, and now all of a sudden, after 40 years, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost punitive. We
Yeah.
played by the rules,
Exactly.
and we lost it, you know.
Right.
Alright.
And the problem is, we're in the ninth inning. We've only got
I know, we're almost.
whatever the number is now,
Town's
so
almost
80,
built
90, whatever the number is of potential places that are left.
Eric, do you want me to
Okay.
try to read out a motion here?
Would love you to read out a motion.
Okay.
Sue, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Sue, do you have any comments?
No, I think I understand where Rich is coming from. As far as the whole moratorium, I agree that, part of it is just the development and some of it needs to be curtailed. I support the moratorium moving forward. I think, so the select board meeting is Monday. They'll post their agenda on Thursday. So I'm guessing that if you want to have a letter written into their agenda, they should have it by Thursday for them to post.
Okay,
All right.
that's fine.
Okay.
Well, and I think, first of all, everybody that's watching, if in fact we're being televised,
We are.
knows what's happening here. All
It's
right,
recording anyway.
Okay.
so I'm going to make a motion to send a letter to this Board of Selectmen saying that the Board of Health supports a moratorium until additional sources, I had this, I can't even read my own writing.
Additional capacity?
Until an additional source, additional capacity, a source of additional capacity is identified. We do not support water treatment plants in EP Zone 2,
DEP,
DEP Zone 2,
wellhead protection.
wellhead protection
And there's River Act
zones.
thing, there's a bunch of different things that are named in the different colors.
Yeah.
But again, you could relate to that generalized map that was done through the regional, what's the name, text the name of the regional thing that we're involved with that's here. On the very bottom in the squares down below, I know it's hard to read.
Huh.
Is it NEMAC? Or what text the name of what's the name of the regional thing that we're involved with, all the towns and whatever, for development and stuff? Is it
But
NEMAC?
we could, to include 100-year floodplain?
I think conservation would not allow that to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we
Okay.
don't want to
Well, as I
usurp
said,
anything here.
Basically, we can refer to this generalized map, because they're saying it's not specific enough to whatever, which you can then break down the different specific maps that exist.
Okay,
Sit there and say, these are what you gotta
You're
refer
messing up
to.
my motion here.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so her motion.
Okay, and we do not support reverting to septic systems.
No, right.
Correct.
All right.
Okay,
So that's my motion.
Okay.
do I hear a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? And do we have anything more to discuss on old business? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept old business.
Second?
And I'll second it, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous?
Sorry, I talked too much.
Did you guys talk, just a quick question, did you talk about the changes to the proposed Article 18? Did you talk about that before I was able to hear?
What's that about? That's I think that's what we were talking about here.
You talking about the animals?
No,
Wildlife?
that's the
No.
sewer.
The other one?
Oh, the sewer, yeah.
Are you talking about the change that's got to take out the sewer commission or whatever it is?
Yes. So
Yeah.
Take out the.
I mean, I don't think we have a problem with
No,
with
no.
making it match the reality.
Right, right.
I believe that they're also making, the one that's been put in our board packets, I also believe that they did it a little bit as well. And that's going to be also discussed, I believe, at the select board meeting, and then of course that has to go before town meeting.
Susan, I did not hear a word of that.
Yeah, kind of
You
garbled.
were
a little bit.
garbled. I
Little
didn't.
bit.
What was that?
What did-
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So the article that I was talking about, the Article 18, that section 132-2 about the connection to public sewer.
Right.
So that was the one I was referring to. And I know that there's been a few more changes to that since the one that was put in your packets. And that will be presented to the select board with the articles next Monday as well.
So what's your concern with that?
I don't have concern with that. That has to go before town meeting and be voted on at town meeting.
It means it says they have to connect in 1 year.
Well, this is an amendment by deletion of
They wanna
this.
delete the whole
They want
thing.
to delete the whole thing.
Well, wait a minute.
We're
I
okay
guess
with
I'm-
them deleting
How
the
it's
term-
presented to us here is strange.
Yeah, we're okay with them
Oh.
deleting the sewer commission from this.
Yeah, we are not
We're okay
okay.
with the town. I would rather have this stand and have a moratorium placed over it than I would to just delete this going forward.
This is, I don't know what the hell they're doing here. Yeah, I'll
Well,
make,
and I think where it says, at the bottom, it's basically going to get rid of the wording sewer commission, which we're in agreement with.
we're in agreement with that.
And we talked about that. But then there's also some updated verbiage where it will say the Board of Health could give, 30-day notice if we deem it an environmental hazard and the system is not functioning properly.
Okay, so what we have in front of us is just a deletion of section 132-2.
And we're
Right,
not in
and
And we are
favor.
not in favor of that.
No.
We are,
And so since then, it has been reworded and.
But we don't have a
We don't
rewording.
have that.
Well, Donna,
because
Okay.
the
So-
second page we have
did Donna have anything that
is
had
the
that?
same thing.
Yeah, it's just the same, you're right, they're just showing us what they're gonna delete. They showed it to us twice, yeah, we don't have any new language.
So the only
Okay,
thing we
yeah.
want
There
out is sewer
new-
commission.
There is new language to that is going to be proposed at town meeting.
And what does this
And I-
new, what does it
I
say?
thought Donna had sent you the new language. Let me see if I can find it on my computer, and I'll try to share my screen with you.
Well, I mean, the obvious thing is we can say that we don't agree with it until we see the modifications
Yeah, I mean,
and whatever.
Yeah.
And then,
Because there'll still be time. I
Yeah, right,
don't know what
exactly.
the
Right.
deadline is for it to
right,
be
so
submitted. for
we're not
town
under
meeting.
any timeline thing other than sitting there saying, as written, we're not in agreement
well,
with
you don't
it.
agree with deleting 132-2 as written.
As
Right.
written, unless new modifications come down the line.
I wouldn't
then-
even say that, I'd just say
Yeah,
we
you're
don't
right,
agree,
you're
let
right,
them,
you're
I
right.
mean, we should, if
Yeah,
it's that
you're right.
important, we should have had it here.
Yeah.
And, I didn't see it, so do you want a motion on that, Eric?
Do you have one or do you want me to make one?
You can make one.
So,
Do you see me scribbling over here?
yeah. So, make a motion that the Board of Health is not in favor of deleting section 132-2 in its entirety. We are amenable to rewording the term sewer commission.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
it does.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I mean, like I said, we got time to work at least on that one.
Yeah. Was there anything else that we forgot to go over, Sue?
I don't think so. I was trying to see if I
Was there a
could
separate
find-
bylaw in addition to the regulations? Or vice versa?
Richard, where does 129, where's 129 on this?
It doesn't show a lot of streets.
It does show 129. You look for the interchange on Route 3.
Yeah.
So here's the interchange on Route 3.
Oh, I gotta get glasses on.
You are in the colored area, yes.
So we are, so,
Yes, you
so
are.
that's gonna slow down things on 129.
Yeah, essentially like everything
Yeah.
around, like as he says, like the whole triangle in the middle here. But
again-
it doesn't slow down. There might be a couple properties
Is-
out. It might be the West, UMass Lowell West campus.
Yeah, but they haven't got their permits yet,
No,
as I
no,
understood
no.
it, so they're
No.
gonna have to do a system.
So,
All right. Well, those buildings out there are already connected into the sewer. though.
Correct.
So they're not gonna take them off of the sewer.
No,
but if they were to redo them,
Well, the obvious, I mean, there's already a reasonable percentage of capacity on all those pieces of property.
right,
How they redo the piece of property, do it within what you have.
right, right.
That's all.
Actually, I think we probably need to make one more amendment,
Yeah,
or sorry,
alright.
one more motion on this, and that is
Sure.
that, anything that is going to, anything that would increase the the Department of Health's responsibilities in terms of inspections, that Sue runs a lean ship.
Yeah.
If they do decide that they are going to allow for septic systems, then we need to have
Additional staff?
additional staff, inspectors in order to do that. So
Yeah, because we only have one. I think,
Well, no, you're supposed to.
Michelle's the only one.
Michelle's the only one.
You're
qualified.
supposed to sub it out to private contractor things and whatever. That's
to do the inspections?
Oh, sure.
So,
Are you being facetious there, or no?
We'll ask our community development person. That's what his.
I mean,
thing.
that is just fraught with,
I-
I mean, you could just see where that would go bad.
how do we want to phrase this? That the Board of Health additionally feels that the Department of Health, with its current funding and staffing, is not equipped to add on another category of inspections, and would need to have their budget upgraded,
Right. Adjusted accordingly
adjusted accordingly.
Okay.
to meet any additional responsibilities.
Okay?
Yes.
Sound,
Yes.
sound good as is?
Yes,
To
as
hear
is.
motion?
Fine, yeah.
Or second?
I'll
Sec-
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Do you want me to try to share my screen with the changes that I have received here? I don't know how this quite works, but I'll try it. Now, can you guys see that?
No.
We can see it, we
I can't
can't
read
read it.
Okay.
You can't read it?
Well, I
So
guess
basically, it looks like they've crossed out, the
everything.
Board of Health may order any person to connect with the public sewer at any time if it is deemed to be in the best interest of the town.
Yeah, but I thought there
That's
was
all they
also some
left.
verbiage, but also you had to get the DPW's approval of that.
And if it is determined by the sewer
So
division of the
basically,
Department
they
of Public
crossed
Works.
out that whole top section, which was essentially deleting the original one.
Yeah.
And then they're keeping in, if it is deemed in the best interest of the town, and if it's determined by the sewer division of the Department of Public Works that a connection to the public sewer is reasonably available, taking into account whether sufficient sewer capacity exists and whether sewer infrastructure is located within a reasonable distance of the subject property. And they're gonna add into there, that, less than 300 feet upon giving 30 days notice. And then the
So-
Board of Health shall not require a connection to the public sewer for properties which have existing and properly functioning septic systems or private wastewater treatment facilities.
Yeah, but who determines that?
And I believe that was the piece that is still going to be changed a little bit.
So
more.
what you're saying is the DPW sewer department can override us. That's what that says to me. So we're charged with protecting the health of the people in Chelmsford, but DPW sewer department is in a better position to evaluate that. And that's what it says to me.
Okay, so that's not what it's supposed to say. If that's how you're reading it.
That
It's
is
still
how I'm
supposed-
reading it.
But
It's
it's
still
also putting-
supposed to leave the health department as, which we've always been, as that
Autonomous.
department.
Right, we're supposed to be autonomous. That says that
Yeah.
we can tell somebody to connect and DPW sewer commission come in and say no.
That's problem number one. Number two is the fact that, like, reasonable distance, are they gonna define that as 300 feet, did you say?
Yes,
What magic number is that?
that's the kind of the one that Rich has, with all the lists that we've been doing for years, that, what was considered reasonable if you were less than 300 feet away.
Well, yeah. Basically, the two groups that we talked about. You're fronted, boom, you got to do it, you got a year, boom, end of story. Those that are more than 300 feet or on these common drives and whatever
Right.
have the right to sit there and say, no, I don't want to do it
Until
now,
it
I'm going to wait,
fails.
okay? The 300 feet, again, was it an arbitrary decision? Absolutely. It basically was saying the average connection is about 100 feet, okay? The person that's more than 300 feet back from the road, they got a big lot, they got, a house sitting way back up on a hill somewhere and whatever. they're looking at least 3 times plus the cost to make the connection. So at that time, again, we're basically going back 30 years, okay? We're sitting there saying, hey, we'll give these people this big, long period of time to be able to put that money together to make the connection. Versus, hey, sorry, you got 1 year or less, do it or else kind of thing.
But
So,
that's not what this is saying, though.
No.
This is saying 300 feet, they don't have to connect, period. I mean, that's what I
Oh,
think.
if there's
it's-
not capacity, if there's not this, if it's 300
Yeah.
feet, it gives, it just is there's too many holes. I think the
Just
goal,
subject
the
to
goal is to provide the capacity
interpretation.
and then get people to plug into it.
Right.
And so,
I mean, right now, with the sewer program as was put together, there is potentially, I've only seen 4 so far, pieces of property, okay, that cannot connect to the Chelmsford sewer even though they're sitting in Chelmsford. They cannot get the pipe from their house because they're on a town line in most cases. And you can't, we never fronted them, and there's no access for them to come back down through somebody else unless they bought an easement through
Right.
someone, then potentially. So there's about this many, okay, out of the entire town, out of 11,800, whatever the heck the final connection number was that they had come up with, that they proposed, that is going to have to permanently stay on septic systems. Well, you can live with, 5 out of 11,800 as your possible pollution source, the burden on the town and its environment, whatever. You just couldn't do any more than that.
by the way, are the regulations of the former sewer commission, are they still in the books?
Yes.
So we could leave this paragraph unchanged and then just superimpose a moratorium.
That's what they did the first time.
We could just write, and we could, if we wanted to be fancy, we could just put the word former
Yeah.
sewer commission. And that would be preferable to us. And
Then-
the moratorium would override,
Right.
this for a period of time, but we wouldn't rewrite the regulation itself.
Right. That
Okay.
that is
Could do
one way
that.
of looking at it, yes.
Could do that.
So, can I make a motion that the Board of Health would rather simply insert the word former in front of sewer commission on the original 132-2,
Otherwise, leave it intact.
and otherwise leave it intact?
You know, it was a very interesting scenario.
Well, we gotta get a motion on this first.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Do I have a second?
Right here. Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that the sewer commission ended, and as a past sewer commissioner, but as a Board of Health, they very easily and very quickly and whatever said, you can enforce that. DPW and sewer division and whatever wants nothing to do with that hassle of chasing down blank number of thousands of people, okay, to connect in.
And yet now they want.
Now it's like,
Now they want them to
boom.
be second guessing
Yes.
us.
And-
That's not acceptable.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly, yes, the sewer commission's gone, and there needs to be a new clarification about this, that, and whatever. Absolutely, absolutely.
But you'll
But
agree,
not that
Right.
paragraph
No,
goes up there.
that-
We make a determination. It
Right.
shouldn't be subject to somebody else
Right.
qualifying it or saying we're wrong. I mean, that's the whole,
Well-
this we're right back to appointing the board.
Right.
Okay, that debacle at the last town meeting,
Exactly,
you know? I
exactly.
mean,
Okay, you,
I'm
okay,
so- I'm good,
You
yeah.
all set? Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
No.
So I think that needs to be relayed to the select board as well
Okay.
for
Okay.
next week.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
you'll work with Eric on a letter. I'm happy to help if I can, but, all
okay.
right.
Okay, so I'm gonna go
So
and
now-
ask for a motion
I think now
to,
you have to re-accept the old business.
yeah, I was gonna say, we need to re-accept the old business now that we went and changed all of our opinions.
All right, I'll make
Before
another
motion.
motion to accept the old business.
Seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
What do we got in new business here? Biosafety certificate?
So,
Business,
Sue-
I put a, can you hear me?
Yep,
We can now, yeah.
Okay. I put a copy of the Chapter 63 Hazardous Materials regulation, which has been in the town of Chelmsford for a long time. And the hazardous materials refers to, obviously, any companies who deal with hazardous materials as well as, biosafety issues. So we have a company here in town, Thermo Fisher, who's been in town for a long time, and they are basically changing up some of their production. And they have a plant in Bedford, Mass. That's been permitted and licensed in Bedford for many, many years. And they want to replicate what they're doing in Bedford here in Chelmsford, which would mean bringing in some different types of materials. In order to do that, based on this Hazardous Materials Chapter 63 requirement, the Board of Health has to issue them a biosafety compliance certificate. And I was not able to find anywhere in our office at the current time, and it's since I've taken over as health director, where we ever issued a biosafety compliance certificate.
Never did.
I developed a biosafety certificate application, and I basically developed that application based on the requirements that are set forth in this hazardous materials regulation. And specifically on page 2, under administration and enforcement, it talks about how the certificate of compliance has to be issued by the Board of Health or its enforcement officer, how they have to apply for this certificate of compliance. And then it also goes on page 3 to talk about how they need to give us a complete list of all their chemicals and pesticides and fuels, et cetera, in order to get this certificate of compliance. So I basically did the certificate of compliance right out of the regulation. And after talking to Bedford and looking at the requirements and what was going to be entailed for them to apply for the certificate and for us to review the documentation, ended up coming up with a proposed fee of $200 for this biosafety compliance. Now, they would only have to apply for this when they first start the production. And then the only time that they would have to apply for it again would be if they change chemicals, if the company changes hands, et cetera, et cetera. So
Where are they
basically, under
located,
this-
Sue? Where are they located?
Oh, you know what, I looked that up. It's not 129. I can look it up.
You thought it was
now.
129 area?
I don't think it's 129.
No, I don't think it's
Okay.
129.
No, the reason I was saying it is that it never came up in the past because there was never any bio scenarios.
No, they never did it before.
Right.
Now,
There was chemicals only, kind
right,
of thing.
and now my understanding is they want to expand similar to what they're doing in Bedford.
No, and again, as I said, I don't have any.
And Bedford's not saying they're a bad neighbor and kicking them out.
Not at all.
No, the only thing that I would have looked at, quote unquote, in the past, if someone came in with that kind of proposal, was the fact is everything we were worried about was chemical based and how the chemicals would get released and this, that, and whatever.
They're on Alpha Road.
They're on Alpha Road,
So
okay.
they're off of
So
129,
it is.
so-
And the reason I'm asking is the fact that, the first thing that rings a bell, on a bio, kind of scenario kind of thing, is the air release, okay, kind of thing. That something goes wrong in a capacity and there's a release by air. Now again, chemicals can be released by air, and within their quote unquote contingency plans for that facility, for the fire department and everybody else, to know when they're responding is, yes, this is what would happen if this was released. And these products have the potential to be released in this zone of area, this radius around their building and whatever. And of course, the obvious question is, I hate to put it this way, but how much residential is within this zone of concern?
Well, I think that what Sue's brought before us
Right.
is not is not an
Right.
application. It's not
Correct.
from a company
It's a
yet.
reg in which
This
they
is-
need to
This
live
is
by.
just
Yes,
just a
yes,
form,
yes,
and I think,
absolutely.
I think that,
Absolutely.
then the second step is once they apply and they say, I have this and this and that, we would
Right,
potentially need to
right.
drill down and figure out
Right.
okay, well, this one's a fire hazard, this one's a water hazard, because this is in zone 2.
Well, as I
If it's
said,
on Alpha
regretfully,
Road.
what rings the bell is, what did they snake up right through the Alpha Road in between all the commercial industrial buildings?
Yeah,
A residential thing.
yeah.
It's like,
And that's all of this too, once they decide to go this route as far as their business, they also have to get the specific permits, from the fire department.
correct. Oh, yeah.
As
Oh,
far as those
absolutely.
hazardous
Oh, yeah,
materials.
no.
The only thing-
I'm not negating the company can't do this, A, B, and C, but as I said,
But in terms of a form that just basically asks them to
Yes.
spell out everything,
yes.
it has phone numbers and names and stuff like
Yes,
that, and
absolutely.
$200 sounds reasonable,
Right,
and if this is in
yes.
keeping with
No,
what
the form
Bedford
is great.
has,
The form
then I
is
think
excellent.
that, if some place someone wants to make a motion, we can take a vote on the form.
Well, let me look
And
at
see
the
what comes
form
from there.
again.
What's that?
Do you need, how is the signature on the form? I can't find my form.
The signature on the form is only from the, this is the application,
Right, so the business
signs it.
is good, okay.
So this is simply asking them to give us $200.
So we're
And to
relying
spell
on
out.
them to tell us some stuff here,
Right.
all right? So
Yeah.
I think this needs to be signed under the pains of perjury,
Okay,
okay?
Yeah, no.
All right, and
Absolutely.
it needs to be signed by a duly authorized officer of this company, not the janitor, receptionist.
Yeah, no.
Rich, would you sign this for me?
Well, again,
so what's that wording, Anne Marie? So signed under the pain,
Pains of perjury, pains and
Uh-huh.
penalties of perjury by a duly authorized agent of, put the company in there. Then you need to have them identify their capacity here.
okay,
And also probably spell out their name underneath.
Yeah, that'd be good to know, too.
so we'll have them sign it and print.
Yeah.
As
Well, like I
opposed-
said, there'll be a time frame between receiving this, reviewing it, inspecting it, and them starting the operation, so
Mhm.
we can do the different things, but,
So, first motion is to agree that $200 fee is appropriate for this.
okay, I'll second that.
And to add it to our fee schedule.
Yeah.
Okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the second is with the modifications that Anne Marie just made regarding the signature at the bottom of the page. With those additions, is this form acceptable?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to accept new business.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So where did Mark find the time to do such an extensive report this week, this month?
He actually developed himself a system where he logs it every day and then he just,
I love it. I think it's great.
yeah.
And he wasn't whining about it?
I don't wanna hear it.
He's actually improved in his computer skills.
Oh, good. No, 'cause-
We've been teaching him.
yeah, I know. I'm only kidding, but it was like, oh, geez. I gotta go back and, yeah, no, that's good. Very good, thanks.
Okay.
No, I like it.
So, any discussion?
No, yeah, we're fine.
Kudos to Mark. Slap on the back for Mark.
Yeah.
Motion to accept?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public input.
Is there anything out there?
I only
I
see
do-
tech
Yes,
support.
there's a Mark Parada who had mentioned earlier that he wanted to speak.
Okay.
Is he on?
I don't know if he's still on.
I saw his name, and I saw a second name
What are you looking at?
previously.
Aren't you a
If you look on the
good
right side there, you see currently two versions of Sue and
got
then
better
a
glasses than
black
we got.
tech
I'm gonna
support.
sit there next time.
Yeah, there it is. Well, I didn't know they were gonna put the screen there,
Bring
so.
your binoculars.
Yeah, so those are the Those are the
I
three
don't know
currently
if
on.
he's still on. I only see the room and myself.
Was there any comment that he made, or?
He mentioned that he wanted to talk about, let me move this up again, see if he specifically said it. He wanted to talk about the Newport Industries and the air quality complaints.
Okay,
He lives in Scotty Hollow,
yeah, well,
and he said, I have a question regarding comments, including a long memo addressed to Michelle Grant in August regarding the Newport plant, and whether or not they have been entered into the Board of Health record. I did not send you copies of every single complaint or every single email that we've received. We just basically updated you on the fact that we are receiving numerous ones and we do have them all on file.
Okay,
And then he asked, another question will be the monitoring program plans as well as the air quality test results. Will they be readily available to the public, which I did say earlier they would
You
be.
answered that.
And all they would have to do, once that air quality study is completed, it will be presented to the select board, I imagine, and then available to the public by public records request.
Okay.
okay.
And I'm just trying to see if
Well,
he said,
Sue, I mean, I suppose we could post it too.
yeah,
We don't have to, I
we
mean,
could, we
I
could put it
don't,
on our website.
yeah, I don't really think they should have to go through the effort of, a document request. We should just post it. This is really critical information to this group.
Mhm.
Well, to all of
Yeah.
us.
And he wanted to make the comment that, what Rich was talking to earlier about nighttime asphalt production and the monitoring program. So when they did the air quality study, hopefully they'll capture 24 hours.
Hopefully, yeah. I would imagine.
I've been out.
I do know that that was brought up at the select board meeting where somebody said, will they be doing off hours? And I'm pretty sure that the representative at the time said that that was not originally in the contract, but could be discussed.
Sue, there was one question I wanted to ask you.
Mhm.
Has anybody asked DEP, okay, or Westford or whatever, is this plant ever going to be approved for that new mixture that they bombed on the town a number of years ago? That's basically,
I don't think that question's been asked, Rich.
yeah, well, if the people think things are bad now, if they change to that new experimental mix that they had, they used it for about 6 months until everybody was screaming and yelling and whatever. I mean, as I said, it was 10 times. If you thought what you were smelling before was a nuisance, this stuff would knock your socks off, kind of thing.
But it's probably gonna knock the socks off of the residents of Westford too, so.
Well, the only, good, bad, and indifferent, as long as the wind direction, and the wind direction during the months of their predominant operation and contracts and whatever are such that they predominantly blow away from their town. You hate to put it that way, but bottom line is that 90% of the time, or maybe even better, 90% of the time, odor complaints are going to not go into Westford, but go into Tingsboro / Chelmsford, kind of thing. That's the reality of this thing when it first started. And there's not a lot of ways around that kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to see what.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Can technical support see at all if anybody else has joined us and if they have any questions?
I think there's something at top says gallery view. Wait, they just wrote, I did not see anyone else in the call.
Okay.
So they actually responded, so that we're it.
We're done.
Okay.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.